Hey, welcome back. My name is Jay Oza. I teach, mentor, and coach people on public speaking so that they can give winning high stakes speeches, whether it's for a job interview, a business meeting, or even a conference. Today, I want to talk about a job interview and specifically, how do you handle the screening interview? Now, I didn't think I was going to do this video, but lately I've seen a lot of the people that I've coached have gotten rejected during the screening interview. And especially this happens with the tier one companies, companies that get tons of resumes, like Amazon, Google, Microsoft. So I was asking myself, what's going on here? And what's going on is that the screening interview is not like the old days, where you kind of see if there is a match. Hey, here's what we're doing. Hey, here's your background. Is this your interest? You'd like to work here? It was just a kind of going over the background, see if there's an interest, and then come to a common agreement. Yeah, to move to the next step, which is to talk to the manager. And that's where the real interview would take place. I never had a situation where the screening interview rejected you. And that happens means that something is terribly wrong. But that's no longer the case. The screening interview now is a real interview. So that means, hey, we have to change our game. So, what to do? The first thing you got to do is you got to find out the role of the screener. That it, and even though you know it, but it's better to ask. So, are you the person who's going to make the decision whether I move to the next step or not, right? And she says, he or she can say, yes, I'm the person who get to make that decision. Great. Find out, okay, based on you looking at my resume, where do you stand before we go on to some of the questions you have at this point? What percentage would you give on by moving to the next step? Person says 50-50. The person should give you an answer because he or she is talking to you, so there's some interest. You got to find out what that percentage is. Let's say it's 50-50. Okay, find out what are the 50% that are on the go side. Okay, and then what are the 50% that's on the thing that I need to find out more about? So now you know that's what you have to focus on, the 50% that the person needs to find out. Okay, that's going to determine whether you get to the next step. But there's one other question you do need to ask. Because if the person has a right to reject you, that person better know this answer too. What does the offer look like? Because if the person says, well, that's not my job, well, let's get this straight. If he or she has the job to either move you to the next step or reject you, then she better know, or he better know, what the offer looks like. And if the person doesn't know what the offer looks like, then just say, listen, in military or other places, you know what the offer looks like. That the offer is already there. Every position, the offer is there. Offer cannot be something dubious that's out there. At least at the rough ballpark, you've got to know what the offer is, because you're not just having a friendly conversation. This is a high stakes, call you're having, where your future can be decided, where the company's making an investment and you're making a career choice. You've got to know what the offer is. At the end, it's the offer that you're going to get. There's nothing else you're going to get. It's the offer. So even at the screening level, you got to know what the offer is. If they can't tell you what the offer is, then that's a red flag as far as I'm concerned, especially if that person has the power to reject you, right? So get the offer, and then you can let the person ask specific questions, assuming that they've already told you these are the kind of questions we're going to ask you. Now, one thing I want to make it very clear, we're living in a time which is people are hired on their skills, hard skills. So that means that you really want to get your hard skills validated on the phone at all levels, screening, the manager, or even some tech specialist. Until you get your tech skills validated, you do not want to go to a face-to-face interview. It will be a disaster. The companies want you got to be technically validated. That means you better have the skills that they're looking for. Whatever skills that they're in the top list, this is number one, this is number two, number three, you got to tech out. You got to have the tech validation done before you move on to the next step. Now you may say, well, what about the soft skills? Believe me, companies today hire you on your hard skills, and down the line, they may fire you on your lack of soft skills. But that could take a year. Believe me, I've seen this happen. When they say, well, we're going to look for soft skills, that's total BS. Nobody hires you on your soft skills. Soft skills are completely discounted, and it's one of those myths that's perpetrated by everybody, but it's not true. I coach candidates, and they never come and tell me I got rejected because of my soft skills. It's always tech skills. And these are technical people. So be very careful that you got to have the technical skills. There's another thing you got to really ask yourself. The people that you're interviewing, you have to be smarter than them in something. Again, let me repeat that. The people that are interviewing you, you got to show them that you are smarter than them in something. If you don't show them that you're smarter than them, you're not getting the job. Simple as that. This is not about feel-good session. This is if you want to have confidence that this is the right job for you, you got to be smarter than them. Now that's a little tricky part here, where you don't want to come across as arrogant, but at the same time, you got to be really able to show that you are indeed smarter than them. And if you're not smarter than them, then they're not going to hire you. And the reason is simple. When you look at these companies like Microsoft and Apple and Google and Amazon, the one thing they tell their people is, don't hire somebody that's not smarter than you. Simple as that. So a best way to determine whether you're going to move to the next step throughout the process is to show that you are indeed smarter than them. And if there is nothing in your background that will allow you to do that, then you're wasting your time. You know, this is not like, well, if they like me, they'll hire me. I don't think these companies do that. They have a specific rules. They're in the driver's seat. They got tons of money. They'll interview thousands of people before they hire one. And unless you can show them that you're smarter than them, they're just not going to move on you. Okay? So that's a little bit of a sidebar that applies throughout the interview. But let's say in the screener, at this point, you're done with the questioning, and you're at the end. And you have to ask them, okay, you were 50-50 before. Now we're at the end. Where do you stand now? Unless it's 100, you should just say, look, if it's not 100, then my rule is that I'm not interested. Because you're the one who's making the decision, and unless you're 100, you're not going to, recommend me to the next step. So that's where you need to be, okay? This is so that you don't waste time and you go with a strategy and you execute it. Because if you don't execute the strategy and you do like, okay, my interview's done, it's nice politeness you exchange, and then you wait, and then they tell you, sorry, we decided not to tell you. No, this is a screener. Every interview, they know exactly whether they like you or not. They don't get to make the decision afterwards. If they're making a decision afterwards, that means it's not a good, it's a no-go decision. Unless that there are people in different areas that they just could not communicate while they're interviewing you. Then I can understand it. But if there's one person out there making a decision, you need to know where that person stands at the end of the interview. And you need some kind of a mechanism. So one thing I always tell them is get the percentages, higher or not higher. But in the screening, it would be, go or no-go decision. Where do you stand? At this point, it's you're going to recommend or not recommend. And then at the end, you want to know, okay, where does it stand now? And if it's not 100%, then you're done. Just say, look, thank you, but I'm going to move on. Okay? These are kind of things you do have to think about. I know when you're interviewing, you're so excited, thinking like, oh my God, I could potentially work there. Yes, but the likelihood is not. Because these companies have tremendous amount of resources. Tremendous, believe me. And they can just interview as many people as possible. And until they find somebody who's smarter than them across, that all people say that this is the guy we just cannot let go. That's the person that's getting the job. And if you're not that person, you're wasting your time. Okay? Let me know what you think. I know this is one of those things that people don't think about, but lately I've run into this, and I just wanted to make you aware of what's going on out there so that you're able to handle it and can manage it and be prepared. Thank you for watching and good luck.